Watch this.
The controversial run of Superintendent Brandon Durst has come to an end. The former IFF staffer saying he is stepping down after just 3 months. Just when it officially ends, that's still up in the air. He became a controversial member of an Idaho health board, all while claiming various falsehoods about the COVID pandemic. Dr. Ryan Cole is now defending himself and his medical license in neighboring Washington. Talk about applying your learning outside the classroom. That's what one Boise State student is doing with his cancer research, and he's getting some much-deserved recognition for it.
It's important that we can demonstrate that conservative principles work in public education. And on the personal side, I think it's important to teach my children that you can do hard things. Even when people are opposed to you, even things look difficult, that you can do hard things when there's obstacles in your way.
It appears there were just too many obstacles in the way there. That was the day after Brandon Durst, by the way, former Democratic lawmaker and Idaho Freedom Foundation employee. It was the day after he was named as West Bonner County School District new superintendent. It was June 29th. It was also the last day Mr. Durst, uncertified and unqualified to do the job, it was the last day he spoke to us, while the public pushback over his contract and the recall election over his hiring became like a summer-long tire fire in Priest River. Today was the day we learned Durst's tenure is about to be over. The decision from Durst comes as the school board was working to have a meeting to discuss his future. That meeting, first scheduled for last Wednesday, didn't happen because of a lack of a quorum. It's rescheduled for 2 days from now. So what does happen now, and what does Durst have to say about it? Joe Paris is following all of this for us. And Joe, did Durst officially step down as superintendent? There's some little bit of language we have to kind of delve into.
Yeah, there's some nuance here. So to be very clear, it's not like he is resigned today immediately, effective immediately. It's not like he's walking away today. So to be clear, he's still with the district. It's not an immediate resignation. And to quote the about 2-page statement that Durst published this afternoon, Superintendent Durst says that he is looking for a, quote, an amicable and fair exit from his role as the superintendent. He adds that this decision has not been made lightly, and he's fully aware of the challenges and sentiments that have surrounded his brief tenure. Now, Durst points out in his statement that, again, he took the job on June 28th. Little backstory for you here. Back in the month of June, the West Bonner School District was looking for its 5th superintendent in a little more than a year. In March of 2022, the superintendent, who had served there for 8 years, they decided to go take the same job in Kamei, Idaho. So after an involved selection process, the board offered a job to Dr. Michael Roby. He turned it down in the final stages of the process. So school board, back to the beginning. They eventually gave the job to Jackie Branham, one of the other finalists, but they abruptly resigned in March of this year as well. So from there, Susie Lucky, a longtime Bonner County teacher, was appointed by the board as an interim superintendent. And Lucky was in the finals to be named the full super, she and Mr. Brandon Durst. Ultimately, the Board of Trustees there chose Durst by a 3-2 vote in late June. And that kicked off a series of heated school board and community meetings about Durst, his political affiliations, his history in politics, and his education qualifications. The contract and benefits, for example, were a major point of contention for some, as well as the requirements just to be superintendent of public instruction in Idaho. One of the requirements for Durst to get the job, or any superintendent job in Idaho, is to have 4 years of full-time certified experience working with students while under contract with an accredited school. You can see on your screen, there's a litany of things you have to do to get through and go be the superintendent, but Durst, he needed a special emergency provisional certificate to get through, and he needed that from the state. And for that to happen, the school board needed to declare an emergency. At the time, one board member, Carolyn Barton, she spoke up saying that she didn't see an emergency that would allow for this certificate.
The superintendent candidate that was voted in is not currently qualified or able to fulfill all the duties of a public school superintendent, even with an emergency certification. The direction of our board has turned into a fascist dictatorship with an agenda, which is far from our conservative point of view. In no way open to uniting the board, employees of this district, or community. The direction or agenda that has been kept from the members, not only from the board, but our community.
So that was a very important school board meeting, and at this point in the story, the school board started to see heavy criticism from the local community. Some were very unhappy that Durst was appointed. And in August, a few months ago, last month, I guess, voters recalled board chairman Keith Rutledge and vice chairwoman Susan Brown. The recall petition said that the trustees failed to uphold their oath, a pointed comment about their handling of the Durst appointment. Then just 2 weeks ago, a major development. The Idaho State Board of Education decided they were rejecting that emergency application. A letter sent by the state board's executive director, Matt Friedman, said, absent Mr. Durst meeting all 5 requirements for a superintendent endorsement under Idaho code, there's no pathway for Mr. Durst to obtain the legally required certification to serve as the West Bonner County School District Superintendent. The board said that upon review, Idaho law only allowed them to issue emergency certificates to teachers, not administrators like Durst. So while they had made some exceptions 3 times since 2015, their legal interpretation made recently is that those were made in error from the Idaho's AG's office. So in response, Durst accused the board of discrimination and political motivations on social media. So the decision from Durst today comes after a long, about 3 months for that community. And Durst says in a statement today, quote, I faced a situation marked by its relentless obstacles thrown my way by those who wish to see me fail, including the Idaho State Board of Education and the Superintendent of Public Instruction. You can read with me here in the second part, quote, to promote healing and unity within the community, I believe it is necessary for me to step aside as superintendent. It may not be entirely fair, but life rarely is. However, I am committed to facilitating a smooth transition for the district and supporting the new superintendent. So, Brian, at this point, I know there's a lot of questions. What happens? How long will Durst be the superintendent? At what point will he step aside? We don't know this for now, and there's a lot of different ways this could go depending on how things work out. Again, the board needs to meet coming up on Wednesday. By statute, they have to meet at least once a month. That was supposed to be last Wednesday. It got called off because one of the board members didn't show up. So, Brian, we'll find out if they show up on this Wednesday.
The other question is related to his contract, because he can be terminated based on what he signed if the superintendent is required to obtain and maintain an Idaho superintendent certification or provisional certification. They can fire him if he doesn't get that, which he didn't get. So that was what was going to be addressed last week, possibly addressed this week. The question is, will he get the remainder of his contract, payment-wise?
And that's when you take a look at his statement today where he says he's looking for a fair and amicable exit. Yeah. What does that mean to him? What does that mean to the board? So that's kind of the situation here where I saw some people jump to conclusions on social media, say, oh, he's out, it's over. It's not over, it's in the process.
It may not be entirely fair, but life rarely is what he said today. All right, thank you very much, Joe. Dr. Ryan Cole is about to find out if he can continue to practice medicine in the state of Washington. We first met Dr. Cole when he was telling us about the long hours he was putting in, working in his pathology lab in Garden City. It was the somewhat early days of the coronavirus pandemic. Remember that? Back in 2020, just 9 months into the pandemic. Since it first appeared in Idaho, we were told testing was the key to keeping the virus under control. You have to know where it is, how many have it, and if you're making any progress on slowing it. You just completed another 27-hour day, is that correct?
That is correct. I did. Yep. I haven't slept since yesterday morning.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not. No, you just, you run on adrenaline and caffeine, and then you power nap and you get a couple REM cycles in, you wake up and you do it all over again.
The day we spoke with Dr. Cole's lab had just completed processing 1,800 COVID tests in 24 hours. And then he took a lot of his work outside the lab. A lot has happened since then. The vaccine was released shortly after that, with frontline healthcare workers being the first to get it in December of that year, just after we had that conversation. In many cases, they were made to get it or they could lose their jobs. It was within the next few months that Dr. Cole became a darling of the pandemic hoax and anti-COVID vaccine movement.
I have no agenda. I just want people to understand, one, what public health messages have we been missing? What treatment should be available to everybody? I want to talk a little bit about the quote vaccines. This is where we are right now. So does that look like a pandemic? It was. It's not anymore. We're in an endemic now. Statistically, the pandemic is over in Idaho.
That was March 4th of 2021, a year into the pandemic in Idaho, and no, it wasn't over, not even close, because months later, the health crisis would get so bad in the Gem State, the entire state's medical systems would go into crisis standards of care. They could turn people away. From there, Dr. Cole would join forces with America's frontline doctors, the outlying group of physicians who have been accused and proven to be, outlying to the public about the pandemic and the vaccine. Also that summer, in the middle of his world tour touting his anti-COVID vaccine message, In August of 2021, Dr. Ryan Cole was appointed to be the lone physician on the Central District Health Board, replacing the one who'd been there for 15 years because, as one Ada County commissioner said, it's time we try someone with a different perspective. Well, that whole time, Dr. Cole had been promoting the benefits of treating COVID-19 with the anti-parasitic medicine ivermectin. So much the rage, ivermectin, we showed pictures of shelves from D&B Supply back then where the horse wormer, dewormer, had been sold out, despite the store posting the warning, this product not safe for approved for human use. Those were empty shelves back in August of 2021. It was also around that time we learned from Dr. Cole he had prescribed ivermectin, not the horse dewormer, by the way, but the medicine, ivermectin, to more than 200 patients. A couple months later, in October of 2021, the Washington Medical Commission opened an investigation into Dr. Cole based on a complaint filed claiming his medical advice and treatment for COVID-19 was below the standard of care. Washington, that's one of the several states where Dr. Cole is certified to practice his medicine. And that brings us to today, when the Washington Medical Commission opened its hearing regarding those complaints against Dr. Cole for what they allege are numerous false and misleading statements related to COVID-19 and for treating patients with COVID-19 or preventing infection in a manner beneath the standard of care. In the complaint, there are 4 patients who all claim they received care from Dr. Cole on a website, which is myfreedoctor.com, during the summer of 2021. All say he treated them, none of which were vaccinated, through instant messaging on that website without seeing them in person or by video. The complaint says he prescribed ivermectin to all of them, and in some cases in doses stronger than recommended on the bottle. A couple of them, they claim, had pharmacies refuse to fill those prescriptions, and then Dr. Cole was unable to be reached for a follow-up. The first witness in today's hearing, Dr. Rebecca Johnson, who in 2021 was the CEO of the Board of Pathology, the American Board of Pathology, she told the panel the medical profession has a public trust to maintain high standards, to have integrity, and to practice evidence-based knowledge and use that in the best care of their patients. She said she felt the need to get involved when she heard about what Dr. Cole was saying in public.
I'm Dr. Ryan Cole. I'm a Mayo Clinic trained board certified anatomic pathologist, clinical pathologist, dermatopathologist, way too many years of school. Also did some PhD research in immunology. So immunology, virology is right up my alley.
He had been certified in dermatopathology, but he had allowed that certification to lapse. So he was misrepresenting his credentials. So we sent him a cease and desist letter.
Dr. Johnson was one of the first to write a letter to the Washington Medical Commission sparking this investigation, something she was inspired to do because of a complaint. Well, she said she received several complaints about Dr. Cole, but she also received a long, detailed letter from Dr. David Pate, the retired CEO of St. Luke's Health System and a member of Idaho's COVID task force. And in that letter, Dr. Pate described what Dr. Cole was doing and how it was well below the standard of care anywhere. Dr. Johnson was asked about that by Dr. Cole's lawyer, attorney Nancy Garrett.
Okay, what harm can you say that Dr. Cole did to others? Specific harm, please.
It's my understanding that he prescribed ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, both of which were well proven to have no efficacy in the treatment or prevention of COVID. Even the manufacturer, Merck, of ivermectin released a statement saying that it has no role or value in the treatment of COVID.
Okay, so you have no evidence of harm to patients, right?
No direct evidence.
Well,
But again, I wouldn't have, how would I have access to that information? It's protected health information.
That's true. Dr. Pate, by the way, was called to testify today about an hour ago, a little more than an hour ago. He spent the rest of this afternoon, or most of this afternoon, with an infectious disease expert, breaking down what misinformation and disinformation Dr. Cole has spread over the last couple of years. Things like calling the COVID vaccine the clot shot, needle rape, and claiming it directly causes cancer, and whether ivermectin would actually work against COVID. Dr. Cole's attorney said today, this case is about 2 things: free speech and direct harm to patients. The hearing is scheduled to continue the rest of this week. There are only a handful of witnesses expected, but we are not sure if we will hear from Dr. Cole or not. For most people, volunteer hours are time to give back to the community, right? It's often usually a cause we don't always have time for as we work our regular 9-to-5 jobs. But one man in Boise has invested both his career and time outside of work for a worthy cause. Cody Wolfe is a biomolecular scientist at Boise State University. He's researching how cancer cells react to proteins. Meanwhile, outside the lab, you can find him talking to our state lawmakers or congressional delegation about his cancer research funding and making healthcare more accessible. It's been his life for about a decade now. But now, his volunteer efforts are officially recognized by the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. Here's Andrew Barline.
Life inside the lab can be considered redundant, but hardly predictable.
Everything that we do is based on these cell lines.
Cody Wolfe comes here daily.
All of these are breast cancer cell lines. So a patient who had breast cancer donated her cells, and we grow them up in a lab so that we can test anything we want on them.
Because the controlled variable tends to be resistant.
A lot of times our immune cells are tricked by the cancer cells to be used for them instead of against them.
So it's a protein that makes the cancer spread more quickly?
Yep. So it's a normal immune protein called a cytokine. During a regular wound healing situation, it's going to help you fight that bacteria and help you close those wounds. But when cancer cells use it, they actually manipulate that protein to help it move faster.
And the work in this lab, Cody agrees, is important.
A lot of prep.
Because biology is about real people.
When you're just pipetting all day, it might feel like it's not very important, but then you go and you listen to a cancer patient, or you hear how they did not get access to care because they don't have insurance. Well, how good is my drug if a patient can't get it? It's not good at all.
Cody joined the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network nearly a decade ago.
And I was really interested in the policy side of things because it's really where you make a change in cancer patients' lives. Implementing policy to give them access to better treatment, increase cancer research funding, all of that comes through our federal government and our state government. And so that's what ACSCAN does. I received the Young Leader Award at our National Leadership Summit on Lobby Day last year. It was really nice because Idaho doesn't get a lot of recognition. It's a hard state to push policy in some cases, and we work really, really hard. And so I felt like it was more of a team win than it was a personal win. We also fight really hard for access to care for patients, both federally and also in the state level here with Medicaid expansion that was passed in 2018. That was a really big thing that ACSCAN was a part of.
Cody, he's part of it all, in and out of the lab.
To end cancer as we know it for everyone.
And his predictions, ambitious.
So I don't think there's going to be one cure for cancer, but I do think there's going to eventually be many, many cures or treatments that make cancer so much more easy to deal with.
This award is handed out annually to a state volunteer, and as you heard Cody say, it feels to him more like a team award, though he is happy to see progress move forward in the state. And then this scenario, Brian, he talked about, he feels they've had a lot of progress moving forward, kind of talking in generalities, but Medicaid expansion seems to be the big thing that really kind of hanging their hat on that they found success with. And he was seemed a little surprised they were actually able to do it. Obviously, a lot of groups working together on that piece.
Well, there's a lot of groups working against that, even to this day, who would say that was the downfall at this point and a detriment to the state of Idaho. Yet, cancer touches everyone. And so what he's doing is obviously going to affect those people that are also saying, well, we shouldn't have done this, shouldn't have funded this.
He was talking about a campaign that the organization did, I think it was called like 1 degree or 1 degree of separation, right? Maybe you don't have cancer. The chances you know someone who does or know someone who knows someone, it's like 100%. Like I don't know anyone who's not affected in one way or another.
All right, good for them. Thanks, Andrew.
Did you see that on our Idaho Weather Watchers page? If you're part of it, that was some great video. So quick weather science lesson. What we're seeing here, I grabbed a still frame of it. This is not a dust devil. This is a landspout, which is technically a tornado, but a very weak tornado and has some very different characteristics from a normal tornado. You can see this long kind of rope-like condensation funnel. This forms while the storm cloud is still forming above it. It's not created by spinning or rotation within a supercell thunderstorm. That's what causes to some degree a tornado. That's part of it anyway, one ingredient, right? So there's no spinning updraft. The rotation instead begins near the ground. It's not the entire funnel here that is spinning. So it's not the severe tornadoes that will cause a lot of damage or destruction, but still it is a tornado. So pretty fascinating video out of Nampa last week. Thanks to Sherry for posting that. Look at the temperatures right now. This is the big headline today. We're at 87 degrees in Boise. We're in the low to mid 70s in the mountains. The temperatures today fueled by some strong southerly winds driving dry, hot air our direction, but fire weather concerns also ramping up today. So a red flag warning in effect for eastern Oregon and Owyhee County through 8 o'clock tonight because of those strong winds and very low humidity. So the cold front just now starting to hit the Pacific Northwest. It's been raining along the west coast and central Oregon and Washington throughout most of the day. We will stay mostly dry, but this is the main portion of this low pressure. As it starts to come in on Wednesday into Thursday, our temperatures will continue to drop while we're under its influence. Look at the 7-day forecast from upper 80s today to upper 70s tomorrow, upper 60s by Thursday. We bottom out over the weekend, highs around 60 degrees with a chance of some showers coming in for Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, sorry, just sending a message to one of our viewers. Speaking of those, let's get to what you sent in today for the rest of you. This one from Maggie. Brandon Durst has had one goal in mind, and that is to kill public education. He never should have been hired in the first place. It is frightening how dangerously powerful a school board with an agenda can be. There's a lesson here. Yes, pay attention to what goes on in those smaller elections, school boards, library boards, precincts for parties. Dear Mr. Durst, to be absolutely clear, educators want anyone to fail who is an enemy of the public education. It is a cornerstone of our democracy. That's a good point there. To be fair, life rarely is. Durst always plays the victim, says Rod in Boise. Thank you for following up on Dr. Cole. I applaud the Washington State Board of Medicine for taking this on. It is equally disappointing that the Idaho State Board of Medicine is not pursuing this as well, says Sam Summers. We do know there may have been an attempt to, but we also don't know what happened to it. We don't know what they're doing in Idaho. We'll see you tomorrow.